All right, Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 16, episode 7, Nashville something. Porsha's birthday party. Pardon me, I'm not driving today. TikTok keeps flagging my videos, so we got 20 minutes to get this bitch out before I gotta go to work. Anyway, so we open with, it's kind of a split screen between the three. It's Britt and her husband at a Ferrari dealership. Stunning. She's in a $456,000 car, talking about vroom vroom with her leg kicked up. I fell out when her husband was like, "Put your leg down, you're doing too much." That was funny. But that scene is intercut with Porsha, Cynthia, and Shamia showing up at Kelly's house to discuss the peace brunch, the unpeaceful brunch. And then also we have Drew going to Angela's house to talk about it as well. So Britt and her husband are discussing it. I gotta tell you, like, Britt and her husband sitting at that dealership leaning against that Ferrari talking about the peace brunch was just staged and so just inauthentic to me. Like, Britt, I'm sorry, I don't like her. I'm trying to be objective, y'all. I really am. I'm trying to be objective. Her husband asking her questions, inquiring about it. It's all just like, okay. All right. The ladies all talk about it. They move on to Porsha talking about her upcoming birthday trip to Nashville. She wanted to do like the Beyonce Cowboy Carter thing. So she invited all the ladies. She did not invite Drew. They start talking about that. Cynthia's hilarious because anybody that's been watching this show knows that Porsha don't be over shit when she says she is. She'll be like, yeah, I'm cool. I can do. But she be fuming, bubbling on the inside. Porsha says they're in a better space, but she doesn't want her on the trip. I totally get that. If me and you have just made up, we're cool and we're cordial, that doesn't mean you coming on my birthday trip out of town. That don't mean I want to spend extra, time. No. So I totally understood Porsha on that. Meanwhile, at the same time in Angela's house, Angela, who to me is the new resident bone collector. She just has a funny way of carrying these bones. But Angela takes it upon herself to invite Drew to Porsha's trip. That's going to be a disaster, which we later will see. We'll get to that. Porsha is even reluctant because she knows they're cordial, but they're not cool. She knows that. Okay, but anyway, so yeah, that's the setup for what happens later. So after this, Drew and Britt meet up. Okay, like I was saying, I'm not a big fan of Drew, but I'm going to give her props in this scene. She got right to the point with Britt. She let her know, she let her know that, and without saying it, that she's, friends with Kenya, but she understood her side. I like the fact that she pointed out to Britt about, her being wrong as well, because Britt seems to think she didn't do anything wrong, which is irritating to me, very irritating. But, she gets to the point, she asked her, she was like, have you ever sold it? And Britt's like, sold what? She's like, Cat, I fell out. Britt admits, no, she's never sold Cat. She did do some webcam stuff with her friend. She said they were naked having a conversation on camera. Something that, she's not ashamed of, blah, blah, blah. It's funny because she says she's not ashamed of it, but then at the beginning of the episode, you're telling, I forget who you were telling. You know what? It was it was a recap from last week. But you're talking about not being able to sleep for a couple days and feeling humiliated. But then to now say that you're not ashamed of that. To me, it seems hypocritical, or not hypocritical. I'm sorry, a contradiction. But then again, it's not like this information was used to uplift you. So I can see both sides of that. But I had to point that out. Gemini, duality, got to point it out. Anyway, how annoying. So that was a good scene because Drew was like, I'm gonna just cut. Boop. Anyway, so after that, we go to Drew and Ralph going to the divorce court. And it was interesting because they show Ralph's home video and Drew's home video. Ralph had a bunch of dudes with him. I think a friend, his lawyer was this black woman who had on these sharp ass red shoes. Shout out to those red shoes. That was all I was staring at. Drew has her sister. I think her stylist friend. That guy's been on other shows, that dude. I can't think of his name right now. And her attorney. So her and her attorney's objective that day was to get Ralph out and to keep the divorce documents sealed. Here's what's interesting to me. And this is why I think Drew and Ralph are the same person. And Drew is a gaslighter and a big narc, just like her husband. So the producer is asking her in the confessional, all right, so what's in the documents that you guys don't want unsealed? What scary details are in there? And she keeps saying, well, it's stuff that Ralph, it has to do with Ralph. Ralph's the one that's going to be more, Ralph's the one that should be worried about it. So then the producer asks her, so what's in there that you don't want the details to get out? Well, Ralph's the one that's going to be worried about it. She says something like that. You keep deflecting to your husband whenever the question is directed to you. And it's funny because her reaction to them documents being unsealed later spoke volumes to me. And here we are. So they're going to the courtroom, and obviously the cameras couldn't go in. They go in there, and then it's like 30 minutes later, they come out. They show them with each of their lawyers in their separate rooms. Ralph and his lawyer was like, this is a money grab, whatever, talking about Drew and them. So anyway, they come out later in the reaction. So Ralph is celebrating because he doesn't have to leave the house. And Drew is pissed in the car. And at one point she rolls down the window and she's telling Ralph that he's a dumbass for doing whatever in court. So basically, it's from what I gathered from what Ralph's lawyer said and what Drew and her sister were talking about in the car afterwards, is that everything that Drew and her lawyer brought forward to the judge, none of it made it through. And it makes me wonder what's really going on. So he doesn't have to leave the house that he's paying for. She talks about not knowing his financial records, but y'all were married. It's a lot going on. It's a lot. I mean, obviously, she can not know that being married. We've seen it on other situations, too. I won't hold that against her, but I don't know. But here's my thing. So the judge ruled that the divorce documents can be unsealed. Drew's in the back of the car crying. You kept deflecting to your husband, but you're the one crying. And then when they show him in the back of his car, he's talking about how he's happy that the documents are unsealed and that we need transparency. We need transparency. That's what he keeps saying. But you crying. It's giving cheating. It's giving cheating with somebody, Drew. And I'm not talking about no other guy. And I'm going to leave that there. All right, so the ladies get to Nashville. The house they stayed in, gorgeous. Angela misses her flight, so she ends up arriving later. House is beautiful. Of course, we do the typical housewives trip room situation, room gate, where somebody's going to end up with a bunk bed, or in this case, a room with a double bunk bed, or not a double bunk bed, a bunk bed, and then a room with 4 beds in one. That was hilarious. When they get up to the room with the 4 beds, and Kelly's like, I know I'm not going to be in the basement with Kevin shrunk the kids in the attic. Hilarious. The producers are like, honey, I shrunk the kids. She's like, honey, but Kevin was in there, right? They're like, that's Home Alone. Hilarious. I love you, Kelly. Love you, Kelly. Love to see you and your daughter in the car. Too funny. So anyway, they get their rooms. They come down to eat. They're kind of joking about, they start talking about Angela, and Briz saying her piece, how she was different in a group of people talking about them, the whole peace brunch thing. Angela's pulling up as they're talking about her. So of course she walks in and she feels the energy, and it was hilarious in her confessional. She was so, she walks in, she clearly knows that they've been talking about her. It was kind of funny, but anyway, she sits down, talks about she had a rough trip. I guess her, obviously she missed her flight. Her luggage fell, just a lot going on. So she goes, and I just want to let you know, she says, I thought that Drew should come along. She says something like that. And of course the whole table goes silent. And Porsha says something like, I'm glad, I love that you think Drew should be here, something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly what was said, but, she basically tells them that she invited Drew on the trip and Drew is on her way. So Porsha in the moment, because we know Porsha in the moment is going to be agreeable, but still going to be mad as hell, and that's basically what happens. So they all disperse before they're about to leave and go ride bulls at a bar. They're talking to all their husbands and shit, And Angela calls Drew, everything's fine. I'm like, maybe you can't read a room. So anyway, they go out to this Cowboy bar. That was hilarious. Everybody looked great, by the way. I got to tell you, this is one of the best looking casts on TV, period. I love it. Beautiful black women, all shapes, sizes, shades, gorgeous. Anyway, they all looked fabulous. So they get to this bar. They're riding the bull. That was hilarious. Angela talking about her hips are too old to ride the bull. Too funny. So all of Porsha's friends are there. I don't remember everybody, but her sister. I love Monietta. Somebody named Provi and another chick, but they're all there. So they're turning up. They're having a great time. You know, it's her birthday. So they're all eating. They're sitting around talking. And someone mentions Drew. And I think it was somebody in Porsha's camp. So Porsha is basically like, well, such and such down there, referring to Angela, talks about how Angela invited her without confirming it with Porsha. And Angela's like, I thought we were cool. So Porsha, who's not happy, goes off. I'm screaming. I probably got neighbors sleeping right now. Anyway, Porsha goes off and she's like, she talks about her glue being tacked to her head. Porsha get that look on her face and she's mad as hell. And she was like, why would you think it would be okay? Blah, blah, blah. So in Angela's confessional, Angela, I love you, but you're wrong on this one. For you to say, well, Porsha should have told me on that FaceTime call or whatever Zoom call that she didn't want Drew to come. She never said no. What are you, Amelia Bedelia, when it has to literally be told to you? Are you serious? Girl, come on. So they're bickering back and forth with that. And as they're talking about that and Drew is actually back in Atlanta celebrating the fact that I guess Dennis and her got a record deal or whatever. And she's celebrating at his club. He FaceTimes her on the phone. Porsha gonna be mad as hell at that reunion. But so she's celebrating. So then we go back to Nashville and the ladies are still arguing and they're talking about Drew and somebody had asked, somebody in Porsha's crew is asking exactly what the fallout was between her and Drew. She kind of gives an abridged version and then someone yells out, she probably sucked his D or she sucked D. So then Porsha in her confessional was like, Dennis, she goes, when we were together, I would ask him, did you sleep with her? Oh no, she just sucked my D. She was like, that's his thing. I don't know. This is not good, you guys. I feel like, what are we slut shaming this season? Like, so that was really nasty. I don't like Drew, but that was nasty. And of course, that's going to drum up some issue. Britt said something out loud. She was like, well, that's not nice. She said something like that. But so that's where we leave off. I don't know. This was another good episode. This season is killing it. I haven't been bored or drifted off at all. Good episode. Very messy at the end. This is going to get really interesting. Anyway, happy Monday. Let's have a good week, y'all.